Hello, let's have a look at Special Criminal Investigation for the Master8. So the first thing is that this is not a terribly difficult game. The good news is that for the most part you can actually even play without using the turbos. Um, I would highly recommend that when you're doing this you practice all 5 stages regardless of which goal you're doing, because this game is going to link with Bubble Bobble. I'll discuss that one in a separate video, but suffice to say that they are quite different. Okay, so SCI is Chase HQ2, and what's happening is that you're driving with the up, down, left and right on the D-pad. So up is accelerate, down is brake, left and right is steering. So you can either use your index finger or your thumb. Let's make a save state. Okay, so you can see my mouse, and up here is distance. This is going to go from right to left as you get closer to the criminal. Here's the damage. In each of the 5 stages, you have to damage the enemy vehicle enough to immobilize it. And this is really important because, in my experience looking at different runs on SRC and playing the game, most of your time loss is going to come in this damage section. Shot here is for when you've got rocket shots. Before the chase part of each stage, you'll get 5 rocket launcher shots from a friendly helicopter. When you see the friendly helicopter, you don't need to worry about missing the rocket launcher. You'll always grab it regardless of where you're on the screen. It's impossible to miss them. Here's your speedometer here. Here's your speed in kilometers an hour. Here's your time ticking down. Here's your score. If I understand correctly, if you get a certain amount of score, you get an extra credit. You start the game with 1 credit, and if you lose that and then die again, it's game over, but you get 2 tries and then 3 if you get an extra life, so you should be okay. And you've got 3 turbos here, and the turbos are going to accelerate your top speed from 280 to 370. And I've played earlier and I found that you can actually even get through the first 3 stages mostly without using the turbos. The final couple of stages you really should be using them, especially stage 4. But what I'm going to recommend for you to do is to play the entire game as much as you can without using the turbos first, because that's going to give you time to get used to how it plays, and that's going to give you an idea where you're getting stuck and where you're having problems with the layout. But the good news with this game is that all the enemy cars spawn in exactly the same places every time. There's no RNG with that, and you'll get your time replenished when you get to the chase stages. So, up to accelerate, and then button 1 is firing bullets, and there's a little bit of perspective wobble with these, so you can use the bullets to get other cars out your way, but you've got to understand that they're not quite going to fire straight. There's a bit of curvature to them, so you might want to practice firing other cars as you're driving towards the chase target. That'll help you get used to that. And when you are firing at the chase target, those bullets will do 1 damage. Oh, sorry, 2 damage. So they're important, and most of your collision stuff when you're chasing is going to be using those bullets and spamming them. And then you've also got the turbos, which you activate with 2. But at the moment, I'm not going to play with them. We're just going to go through the game. So hold up. And you see we're accelerating, and we've got turning circles here. We've got obstacles on either side of the track, on the left, on the right, and typically what's going to happen is you'll have an obstacle on one side, and then on the other, and then on one side, and then on the other. And the geometry of the tracks tends to have the same type of thing, so you'll have a left bend and a right bend. It's pretty predictable. Basically, you want to avoid colliding into these things on the side, because if you do, you're going to spin out like that, you're going to lose a lot of distance, and it's going to make it a lot harder for you. Okay, so stage 1, nice and simple. You should practice shooting all these bikes that come at you, and you'll hear when you've shot them. We're going to right turn. Don't worry about these bushes in the middle. And then we're going to left turn. Don't worry about the fire bombs either, they won't slow you down that much. And then a left turn. If you hear yourself skidding, that just means it's a little bit tight. And then we're going onto a narrow highway. Give yourself time to get used to it. If you're in a tunnel like this, then the walls here are going to be solid. But be aware that in the later stages, you will have sections where you're driving with abysses on both sides. So do be aware that there's a difference. So at the moment we're in a tunnel, and I'll lose a little bit of speed if I graze the side. All these cars are in set positions, so you can always work out what's going on. If I let go, you'll see just I'm slowing down a little bit, but if I press back, I'm slowing down a lot. So if you think you're going to be in trouble with one of these collisions on the side, then just pull back, slow down. Don't be afraid of that. We'll discuss turbo use in a while, but let's just keep going for now. You can see it's not very difficult at the moment. Distance is going down nice and steadily. And just before the chase section, you'll get a friendly helicopter. I'm sticking on the inside here just because I know the turns. It's a good idea to try and be on the inside. Here's your friendly helicopter. Once you see that, don't worry about where it's landing. Just focus on the road. And that means the chase is soon on. And I've got 5 shots in the top right corner. And you'll see I've not used any turbos and I've got plenty of time. Okay, let's make a save state. So we get a time bonus. And I've still got my 3 turbos and I can use them if I want. I've got these 5 shots are extremely important. So especially in stage 3, 4 and 5, you need to be accurate with those if you're going to get a quick kill. So you've got an arrow pointing to your target car here, and what you want to try and do is spam as many shots as you can behind him and ram him as well when it's appropriate. I say when it's appropriate because you will need to be careful to avoid being knocked back from him into sides, into the stuff of the scenery. But also, collisions aren't that important, they only do 1 damage. But these rockets, they do 6 damage. They're essential. Now I mentioned the curvature. I'm going to play this a few times and try and just show you how the curvature of these shots works. So I got one there. I got one there. I got one there. Let's try it again. But do you see there I missed on the right side? So there's a little bit of curvature to these. And you're going to be tempted at first to absolutely spam the hell out of these shots. But you can see if I miss a few of those, it really adds up. So let's just see how much damage we get from 5 of them. Absolutely huge amount. And you can also see when I ram into him, I'm getting pushed back in the opposite direction. So it's really important to remember what position you need to be in and avoid being checked into scenery like that. So with these rocket shots, take your time. Don't be afraid of taking your time and making sure you land them. Much better to get all 5 shots than to go early and end up having to get like 20 normal shots. Try and remember that the curves are going to alternate. So now I've got none of those left, I'm going to start spamming normal bullets. And you can see that we can catch him really quickly, even without using any of the turbos in the first stage. And then you mash, 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 and you're through to stage 2. So let's look through stage 2. Same deal. Nothing difficult. Stage 2, we've got water. You've got to be careful not to crash into the water because you'll whale out and you'll have to start again. And you've got poles on opposite sides. And there's going to be an enemy helicopter comes at you in a little while here. And you're going to avoid the shots from that one. So just be aware of that. If you're in doubt, stay in the middle of the road. Don't be afraid of knocking into the cars. You're much better to knock into a car than to crash out on the sides. That's the biggest cost of time. And especially if you're getting used to not playing with any turbos, then you've got spare turbos to get back up to speed. So we're going to have an enemy helicopter coming here. Here he is. You can dodge to the left. I find it a bit harder. I'm going to recommend you stay in this right-hand lane for this bit. So come over here. Dodge his shots. No problem. No problem at all. Avoid these rocks as well, because they're just as bad scenery-wise. Again, try and avoid getting caught into trying to overtake all these cars. If you know a rock is coming, just wait it out. It is absolutely pointless being too aggressive on these turns. Because if you crash out, you're going to lose so much time. You can still get checked back by these other vehicles. So, let's make a safe stay and look at the shots here. Now, this curve in particular can be awkward for firing these rockets, so I'm going to wait it out. I am also going to notice that I've got water on the right-hand side here. So if I'm going to collide with the target, I'm going to do it from his left half, because it's very easy to get too aggressive and get checked into the water. Take it nice and careful. Don't be too aggressive. Okay? You see I missed a shot there? That's going to cost me a lot of time. Now I can start spamming. I can collide into him, but not on the outside bend of the water. And not when there's going to be a rock on the left-hand side. This sort of game, if you want to get a decent time, it's much better to just be defensive and avoid taking too many risks. Just try and remember what's coming. Right? There you go. Show you that again. So there's a rock, there's a pole, there's a rock, there's a pole. It's always predictable. There's not too much to learn with it. Missed a shot, missed a shot. You can see they're kind of angling away. It takes a little bit of getting used to. Again, do not rush these shots. You would much rather lose 5 seconds to get 6 perfect shots, 5 perfect shots, than rush them. You really would. And be careful trying to check him flush from behind when near the water. In this left-hand lane it's okay, but don't gamble on this sort of position because you'll end up knocking into the water, you'll have a bad time. And then once you've used all your rockets, just fire lots and lots of shots. You can collide on the safe side, but don't collide on the right-hand side. Just be careful. And if you're saving turbos for these chases, be careful not to use them on the windy bits, because you might suddenly lose control. Okay? Stage 2, not so bad. Stage 3 gets a little bit more awkward. There's landslides, there's bigger rocks. So let's have a look at Stage 3. Again, don't play with the turbos for now, because you want to get a sense of what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And then you'll also get used to having them as a backup. Just get used to where the cars are, you've got plenty of time. In Stage 3 there's going to be some big trucks. I'm going to point them out in a moment. There's a specific spot that I want to mention. Again, stay on the right hand side because there's water here. Into a tunnel, another left turn. Okay, so you've got a truck here. The first truck, you're going to go on the right hand side on the inside of it. The second truck comes on the left as well. And the third truck is going to be difficult to get past because he's going to be hogging the middle lane. So what I'm going to recommend is that you stay on the outside curve here. And you try and sneak past him on the right hand side between poles. So that's going to look like this. Like that. Okay. Show you again. Don't be afraid of the water, as long as you're half on the land, you're okay. Try and focus on the poles. Like that. Okay? And then you're going to go on the inside, because you're avoiding the water, and you're staying on the left-hand side to avoid the trucks. Into another tunnel. And the chase for the perspective with the bombs on this one, on stage 3, it can be a little bit rougher. So there's your shots. Just try and stay on the inside each time. You've got 3 cars here, and then you can either try and risk it on the outside with the water, or you can just take it safe behind them. Plenty of time. Get used to not worrying about that time limit. Just focus on good driving. Don't let that music freak you out, just keep driving. If you're saving turbos, just keep saving them. And at the end of this tunnel is the chase. So, on this bit, there's going to be big rocks on either side. You've really got to be careful with those. Focus on the rocks and be aware of these jumps as well. Don't get caught up in trying to spam too many shots and getting in bad position. You'll get knocked back extremely quickly, you'll have a bad time. Much better to take a little bit of time with this one and be safe. Because the biggest cause of time loss from here onwards is going to be colliding with these things on the side. And now we've got a rock and a pole on each side. You can see I'm spinning out because I'm being too aggressive there. That's another reason to keep all the turbos, is because then you're going to have a far easier time in stage 3, 4, 5. So you can see I've just got knocked out twice there and he's getting away, so I'm going to use one of my turbos. I'm still going to keep wary of what's on the side. And again, I'm not trying to go too flush into him because I know there's lots of tight turns coming up. If in doubt, stay in the middle of the road, don't do what I'm doing here. Just remember the pattern of what's on each side of the road, you should be okay. That's the wrong save state, bear with me. Here we go. So stage 3. Let's have a look at that chase again. Rock on the left, rock on the right. So in my head I'm just remembering where the next rock is going to be. You can see you can still get knocked into a rock even if you bounce on the ramp as well. Don't be tempted to fire these shots from too far away either. Don't risk missing them. Especially in stage 3, you're going to lose an absolute bunch of time if you do that. That's okay, we've got a turbo for that. So we'll use a turbo straight away. And we know that the track is going to curve opposite directions each time. And again, I can tell that there's rock coming, so I'm not going to focus on being too far behind him. As you can see, if I get caught here, I'm between a rock and a hard place, quite literally. You might want to focus on getting back onto the road before you use a turbo, because it can be a bit slow otherwise. You can see just how easy it is to get knocked and knocked and knocked again. Let's use a turbo at the start here. You see I've missed all those shots, I'm in trouble. It's going to take a lot longer now. And because the road is turning opposite directions, it's much harder to make up for losing those rocket shots. Because you end up being on the inside of the next corner, not the outside. Practicing the rocket shots on stage 3 is very important. 4 out of 5 and you're doing well. And you can use these corner transfers, like where the inside becomes the outside, you can use that to get lots of shots in on him. So not here. And there's a rock coming up there, so we'll be careful. You see I'm avoiding the rocks, I'm not trying to be so aggressive. Pays for itself. And you can see that you can do this reasonably well without using any of the turbos, so if you want to save them for emergencies, feel free. Now, even if you're only bent on doing the 3-stage goal, I'm going to insist that you keep on playing. Do practice on 4 and 5 as well, because Bubble Bobble can be awkward and you might want to have an option. Stage 4, there's going to be these 3 buses. It says hill, but it means buses. Again, you don't have to use turbos yet. Don't worry about those. Because especially if you get into bad habits turboing in tight corners, you're going to end up compounding your problems. Don't worry about these cars, just worry about the outside traffic and the big vehicles as well. But you play stage 4 and 5, it typically might take you 6 to 7 minutes on a good run. There's your first truck. There's your second one, go on the outside. There's your third one. And then there's going to be a big long left. But the point of this is that you want to get an idea of how long stage 4 and 5 take you as a baseline, because then you've got a better chance of deciding what you want to do with Bubble Bobble, whether you want to go for the long stage or the short. And if you feel like you're good and consistent at stage 4 and 5 in this, then you've got options on race day. You don't have to just like finish at stage 3 and move on, because then you're putting yourself in a difficult position. There's gaggles of blue cars here. Don't be afraid, slow down. You'd much rather take your time getting past them than spin out like this. But again, if you're going to use a turbo, get back on the road first because you'll get much better acceleration. And if you've got a tight turn, don't be afraid to brake in the middle of a turbo. Yeah? So I've spun out. But I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to hurry on using the turbo. I'm going to wait till I get back on the road. And I've got a credit. I might even have 2 credits. I'll be okay. We've got 3 cars coming up together here. And we need to use a credit. So I've got 2. That's okay. You get 3 turbos back when that happens as well. Now, for stage 4, you've got these barriers and you've got these jumps, but you've also now got drops on either side. So this is where I'm telling you to practice now, because you'll get an idea whether it's surmountable for you or not. But again, like with stage 3, focus on driving well. Don't focus on an early kill, just focus on getting shots in the right position. Don't be too aggressive. You know, don't be greedy on corners that are sharp. You see I'm losing a lot of time there because I've lost a lot of my shots. And again, try and stay on the inside towards the central line of the track, so that if he checks you, you're going to bounce back to the centre, not the outside. It's always left, right turns. They get a bit sharp, but they're not too bad. Again, you can see the patterns with the lampposts aren't too hard. This bit where you've got blind drops on either side, you may not want to use turbos unless you're really in trouble here, like here, because he's getting away. But as far as using a turbo to collide into him on this bit, I wouldn't recommend it. Just save them as a back pocket for getting back up to speed. And get used to having to do this so you don't panic if this happens as well. But the top runs take about 6 minutes for stage 4 and 5. I'm going to suggest that if you're in doubt, you will want to be good enough to reliably do stage 4 and 5 on this, rather than worry about bubble. In stage 5, you have got an immediate collision. So you've got to get a truck down, and then you've got to get a helicopter. So you're going to get your turbo shots far more quickly here. There's going to be a central reservation, and you need to be careful to avoid these big old palm trees, because they can hurt you a lot. They can collide with you, so just stay in one lane. You tend to want to stay in the right-hand lane. And you can use turbos, but you can also try and save a couple of the turbos. And in stage 5, you can try and save like 2 of your rocket shots for the helicopter. But here's your first enemy. So I'm not going to do any shenanigans trying to cross lanes here. I'm just going to keep a good position. Get a shot away. Keep a good position. Avoid getting blown into the wall, you see, because it's going to knock me into the wall there. So let's use one of the turbos to catch back up. And again, I'm not trying to change position when they're stuck in the middle of the road. Better to be slow. There we go. So once you've damaged this guy enough, there's going to be a helicopter that comes. And that can be an awkward part, that can be a time loss, so the world record gains a good amount of time on the helicopter alone. Here it is. Let's make a save state for this bit. Now, with this helicopter, you can try and check it into the corners and try and get a big amount of collision onto it. So I'll try and show you that, like, you can try and ram it when it's behind you almost, like this, and get a load of damage. You still want to spam your shots, but again, you want to be careful of these poles on the side. But a couple of good checks like that, you're really going to see your damage tick up. Again, you should have 1 or 2 credits by now. You can try and bunch into it. If you get plenty of front collisions, don't worry, that's not bad either. Again, just try and remember there's poles either side, you know. Don't get caught up in the chase, just get caught up in good driving. And you can try and use a turbo, and that's going to mean that the interval between him running away and coming back to you is going to be shorter. So it could be a good idea to save a couple of the turbos for this bit, because it might make it a little bit more reliable to get these check damages on him. But you can see I'm running out of time here, so stage 5 you do have to be a little bit more careful. But you can still make it. Show you that one again. So remember, there's going to be a central reservation. Broadly speaking, when you've had one type of turn, there's going to be an opposite type of turn. So right, left, right, left. You'll get the hang of it. Always try and stay on the inside part of each lane so you don't get thrown out too much. Same as in any racing game, really. You watch other runs, you'll get a feel for good position. Here's your first guy. Let's try and save a couple of these rocket shots and see how we do the helicopter in. You notice I'm crossing the middle only when I know it's saved. Okay, so we got check to the side, so we'll come back on. Use a turbo. Oops. We'll use a turbo to get some collision shots to the back of him and see if we can use these rocket launcher shots on the helicopter. You get a few options how you play this. This is a little bit slow, but it might be more reliable if you're really concerned about stage 5. Like if you really don't like the awkward stages and blah 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 blah. But there are manipulations for that. Okay. So let's see how we do with the rocket shots on the helicopter. And again, I'm being careful. I am not going to shoot them unless I'm absolutely certain they're going to connect, even if I lose a bit of time. Because remember, if I get a credit back, then I'll get more turbos anyways, so it's worth keeping onto them if you struggle. Each stage you'll end up thinking of a shorthand. You'll be like, okay, this turn I need to avoid this and that. That's very much all it is. Not too difficult at all. So I missed that shot. I'm going to take credit. So it looks like the best way is going to be for you to use your turbos early in stage 5. You can use one at the start of each stage to up your accel, but you don't have to. So if you look at my run and Oreb's run, you'll notice we use the turbos differently. It really doesn't make that much difference at all. And especially if you're nervous about the collision parts, I would keep at least 1 or 2 turbos for each of those, because it'll make you much more calm on race day. So seeing that these turns are a bit wider, I'm going to switch sides, make it easier. Do a little bit of braking, avoid getting checked backwards. So I've missed 1 rocket shot, I'll be a bit more careful with the rest of them. There we go. Turbo back up to speed. Oops. You see, I know what I'm doing, even I get hit sometimes. Just a game. Okay. And we still got 1 turbo, and we can use it on the helicopter to get him to come out forward a bit faster. Or you can use it as insurance. There we go. Let's put the turbo on. And again, I'm trying to check him into the sides, but I'm not doing it at the cost of crashing into poles. Give the poles respect. Keep firing, keep firing. Remember, you've still got a credit by this stage, so you'll be fine. But basically practice all 5 stages, and if you feel confident and consistent, then if you're struggling with Bubble Wobble, you're going to have a better time with this. Check him into the side, keep knocking him. And then if you want to finish the game, then just look at Oreb and my runs, because there's a specific manipulation we're doing in the final chase section. There's one little 45-second section at the end, which is on a very tight time limit, so for the race they're not using it. But you want to basically go around the outside of obstacles, instead of on the middle of the road. But that's SCI. Thanks for watching. Good luck.